I'm a trendsetter. I'm a trendsetter. Okay, let go. Hey, okay, I know I'm here to stay. Counting on my wins, so I can't play this game. Try to go against us, get you out the way. Go hard, it's the only way to play. Let me say, I'm a trendsetter. I'm a go-getter. I'm a trendsetter. I'm a go-getter. I'm a trendsetter. Who can do it better? I'm a go-getter. I'm a trendsetter. They keep calling me, cause you ride this beat, look proud of me. Okay, it ain't no problem, see, I can mold this thing like pottery. Better, I'ma bet on myself. And for the top, and I don't need your help. Oh, yeah, we ready. Yeah, let's ball. Let's ball. Let's ball. Welcome, everybody, to another edition of the Fear of the North podcast. I hope all is well with everyone this evening. My name, Irie Harris. I am joined by the lovely Sapphire, and we are without our third in command and a brother, Chris Murray, established journalist and author. He is tending to a first relative emergency, and that is more important than anything else going on, in this world. So we're keeping Brother Murray in our prayers, and we're gonna take a moment of silence right quick before we get started. All right, we're with you, Brother Murray, and let's dive right into it, man.
Yeah.
Got a
Yeah.
lot going on right now within this division. For one, we think we're willing to allege that HBO has been listening to us because they pretty much took to the same idea. You mean like we might have had to copyright yeah, we might have had to copyright this idea sooner before HBO Hard Knocks
Yep.
came in saying, yeah, we're gonna go in and do the a little in season series, but then the division for the first time. And what division did they choose of all? The AFC North. Would you look at that?
It's the
Trendsetter.
history, it's the legacy. Like you said, it's the trendsetter, right? The trend setting of the AFC North, Irene.
Of all 8 divisions they choose, and they choose that one. We are trendsetter, Sapphire. We might
Yes.
have to sue. I don't know. You mean? Oh man, but yeah, it's going on, a lot to dive into. So I
Yeah.
think it's best to start with the one game that featured both division teams both going at it. The Pittsburgh Steelers did visit the Cincinnati Bengals, and what would you know? They came out on top. They bounced back from their Week 12 loss to the Browns. That snowy loss, and went down to the other team. The other offspring of Paul Brown, and won 44-38. It was a pretty good win. Nearly dominant in the final quarter, but it was a game in which at some point throughout the first half, you could tell that they really had the game in the palm of their hands. And as usual, we just see in ways in which they're just able to control the pace of the game and force opposing teams to play their style of ball. Opening thoughts, Sapphire, within this game. What did you see? What would you like to point out? Something that maybe people aren't, pointing out much that you saw as well within that game.
I mean, for me, it is the Steelers doing what the Steelers historically have done. That team is so balanced on all sides of the ball. And what's probably the most incredible for me in this moment in 2024, they have a 36-year-old quarterback leading their offense and really using various weapons, right, to execute. If I'm recalling correctly, they used at least 11 different receivers in that game. We'll have to check the stats as we go on, but they had the pass game going, set up by the run game. Russell Wilson is adept at extending those plays, using his feet, his escapability, right, to elongate those plays. And the touch, I read, that he has on that football, that extra sort of arch where he's given his receiver that one more second to adjust themselves so they can see the ball, position themselves to catch it. The Steelers continue to be my sleeper. And I'm ready right now to talk about the Super Bowl probability for the Steelers.
Yeah,
Those were my initial thoughts.
yeah, it's so funny. You mentioned those two words because I'll be honest, I thought about that myself after the win. I thought, man, do we really want to go there now? Do we have to? And honestly, I think it's best to because this team is 9-3. That's when you think about that record, the fact that they're closer to 10 wins than they are, 5 losses at that, especially at this point in the season, it's hard not to talk about a team. But when it comes to their capability and probability to make a run and win the entire thing. I mean, right now, if the season were to end today, they will win the AFC North, and they would already be a top 4 seed. So it's hard not to think about that. And I think that now, even though, and you made the right call with them making them your sleeper, they have legit become a team that you have to think, wait, could they make a run you know, come January? So we'll see within that, and also furthermore within how many receiving targets they had. If I remember correctly, by my count, it was 10 receiving targets that they had. I mean,
Mm,
you know what I mean? A multitude of the receivers, tight ends, running backs, of course. But still, to
yeah.
your point, yeah, a way in which, and actually, it's funny that you mentioned the way that he plays out of pocket because I was actually looking recently within another post. It's quite ironic. That and I was looking back during his time with at 2020 when he was still with Seattle. Russell Wilson had led all quarterbacks in pass attempts outside of the pocket with 134. He had 40 touchdowns passing that season, but he also led all quarterbacks in out of pocket touchdowns as well. So this has really been something the element that's always been part of his game. He's talked about it a number of times. He grew up, watching and loving Brett Favre because of his backyard style of
Oh
football.
yeah.
You really see him implement that within his own game, and we see the benefits that we have, especially when it comes to this team. Because this is really that's something this offense really needed heavily. Like they weren't like they were somewhat still, but they would get it done. But when you have a quarterback that's elusive and as creative, on the fly as him, you see the benefits.
You know what? 100%. And just think about the value of the experience that he brings to this team, the leadership, right? And for me, the simpatico that he seems to have with the Steelers offensive line, it I have to remove the black and gold because then it's there's such a sweetness to it. They're so well integrated. Like everybody knows what they're doing and they know how to work with each other. They know each other's tendencies. I was looking at since Russell Wilson became the starter. Steelers are what, 5-1?
Right.
They're scoring at least 8 more points a game on average. And if my math is correct, they're averaging 80 more pass yards per game with Russell Wilson. Like, you can't make that up, right? It's just an incredible thing to watch. I long for the Cleveland Browns to get their Farfanucle together this way. Mike Tomlin has shown me again that he should be the coach of the year. But also, when you have a system, a proven system in place, you don't go away from it, right? You know what type of players are going to work in your system versus drafting or picking up players that have great stats. And he's created almost a plug and play situation. I can't say enough about what the Steelers are doing, save for their whatever you want to call that against the Browns on Thursday night Thursday night football, which I call the Snowgate of 2024. It's incredible what they're doing.
It's crazy you mentioned that nugget regarding the points per game because when you look back, uh, around that mid October time is when you know Fields passed on the QB1 ranks to you know to Wilson because he was finally coming back in off of his injury. I believe the offense ranked within like the bottom 10, bottom 12 at that time. Since Russell has been plugged into this offense now, they've literally they've rose up to top 10 in points per game, and that's not something you would usually tie it and intertwine with a Steelers offense, at least not since Big Ben retire, because that's when you can really get the areas and you can really get the offensive fluidity going. But since then, within recent years after, it's just been more so been the type of team that will get their points as they go. But things have really been different right now this year with Wilson and it's something that I know we mentioned a number of times, but it always astounds me even more and more the way that you see those guys visibly want to go run through a wall for their
Oh,
coach.
yes.
You know,
Yes.
professionals that guys that are making more money than their coach, yet they're still willing to lay it all on the
Mhm.
line for Mike Tomlin, and that's something that a lot of teams like to emphasize or preach that they have within their culture, or guys saying that they care for their coach. That team doesn't have to say a single word. We see it every week that they're out there, and you see the relationship and you see the cohesion that you know the coach has for his players. When George Pickens, that fumble that he had versus Cincinnati, and you saw that, and you saw Tomlin give him those words of encouragement on his sideline and keep him level headed. And then Pickens came right back out afterwards and scored that touchdown, which he would kick the ball into the crowd, and he encouraged them coming and saying, "Hey, way to respond. That's a good response." Like, you don't see that all the time, and that's what makes this team even more dangerous.
And why do you? Because to me, you talked about this all season, Irie. You talked about the importance of establishing a culture, right? Despite the age gap. I mean, Tomlin is older than Rue, who they both are older than Pickens. But to your point, like the culture of the leadership that Tomlin is demonstrating in situations like that. I mean, you look at the two flags that Pickens got for, and I apologize, I'm going to say this. I hate when the referees become a factor in the game. And I don't know what the NFL is going to do. You either let these men celebrate and do all of their things they do for social media, or you shut it all down, right? I thought that was really unfortunate. But even in that moment, you knew that the leadership on that team was going to lay hands on George Pickens, but do it in a way to say, listen, we appreciate your energy. We need all of that. You're great, and think about the impact that you are potentially having on the outcome of the game without it becoming like a toxic situation, right? When you trust your leadership, you're open to that type of, coaching. I just can't say enough about what Mike Tomlin is doing. And have you noticed how much more animated he is this season compared to previous seasons?
There, there is a visible swagger when he walks through the stadium, when he walks along the sideline, that has always been within him, inside him, but it hasn't been displayed, or has really oozed out the way that we've seen it this season. Even just something as simple as the camera catching him walking into the stadium, walking in, into and getting ready for the game. The way he walks with his coffee. And it might sound crazy. Somebody's probably watching this right now thinking, "What is he talking about?" But it's different this season. When you've seen him go in previous seasons, he looks good, he looks cool, but he's also masking it. He's also masking it with other feelings inside. This year is different. He's confident. He's ready. He knows the kind of team that he has. And honestly, he's known the kind of team that he's had before we even realized it, because he's had the same kind of luck all season, if you ask me. Um,
Totally agree with you. Totally agree with you. And I'm going to add the cherry on top of the sundae. Coach Tomlin is having fun. He is enjoying his job. He's enjoying the camaraderie. He's enjoying the commitment. He's on a completely different level, in my view, with his players this year than any other year that I've had to suffer and watch the Pittsburgh Steelers be successful.
I agree, and also real quick, if to what was I gonna say? But yeah, the and also just to kind of clear up as well. I know I said fumble more, so interception, but along with that, regarding Tomlin, I do find it interesting. I think to add on to that, again, regarding him being happy visibly and just ready to go out there and win another game is also, I think a sigh of relief after the last few number of seasons in which. And Pittsburgh fans, please come in and comment. If I'm wrong, please correct me if wrong. But there have been Steelers fans within the city that have wanted him out. They were not pleased with the fact that he hasn't had one losing season in his career. Still has not, within this record and stuff. Even if they were to lose the rest of the games this season, they still would be over 500. They still were not pleased with that within the last few seasons because of the fact that there was an inability to bring in wins come playoff time. He's working all
Absolutely.
of that off. All the people who wanted him out, what can they really say right now? At least this season.
I would say to Steelers Nation, come on up that turnpike about 120 miles and endure the seasons that the Cleveland Browns have had to get some perspective on just how great Mike Tomlin is. That's what I would say to them. It's something to be said about when you're so accustomed to being a fan of a system that is proven to be successful year in and year out, and you still are calling for your head coach to be sat out. I wish I knew that feeling.
100%. Yeah, 100%. And also just because we talk about leadership, talk about culture, like two things might I add. Number one, going back real quick because there's always, and for those that are wondering why we're not mentioning much of the defense right now, we understand the impact of like literally all that we spoke about at least early on was how good this defense is. So the leadership, everything within that defensive unit has been there and will always be there because that's still its football. But it's more so the offense that's just been so electrifying. Russell Wilson coming in within his leadership, and you need it. Like he was the right quarterback when you're in a game that could be a potential offensive shootout. He was the right guy to go to because there's a reason they were going back and forth with Cincinnati, and they still came out on top. At least scoring 20 points in the second quarter alone, right? Like that's the kind of quarterback that's going to make it happen within a certain amount and keep the offense stable. Like their first series around 4 minutes, next time 5 minutes. The very next time for their third touchdown of the game, that took only 2 minutes 33 seconds. Here they are able to score and they're able to keep the series and offense stable at any way which possible, however they feel. And when it comes to the culture, and I appreciate the credit on that, Sapphire, but I mean, I got to give all of us the credit within that. And honestly, it's just something that you see around the league. When you think about teams that have been good, especially consistently good over the last number of years, even if you're not able to describe the kind of culture that they have, there is a visible camaraderie. You think about the Chiefs, you think about the Eagles, you think about the Bills. The Bills are not a team that have won much of the big games within recent years. All due respect, my film members, but you see there's still a cohesion and culture within that team that keeps them going, and that's something that the Steelers have always had, and that's something that couple teams within this division will get to later on are lacking, or at least it's just not showing within their record. But I'll save that for later on. But yes,
You know what? Thus spoke young Irie Harris. I wasn't overly impressed with the Steelers defense on Sunday, but I thought they made enough big plays to to your point,
exactly,
enable
yeah,
the offense to do their thing. And speaking of, I got a clip here from Rue Wilson. That's what they're calling him now on game day. So I thought I would be consistent. Let's take a look, a listen about what he had to say about the way the Steelers played.
Yeah, I thought we had a great day. It all starts with the offensive line. I thought they did a tremendous job. We got to a lot of checks, a lot of audibles, a lot of moments in time, and in the run game and the pass game, getting the stuff that was favorable looks and everything else. And I just think guys did a great job making plays. I mean, I thought George made a great catch down the sideline. I thought Pat's plays on his scrambles, and also too just how he was painting clear pictures. I always say, the best receivers are always painting a clear picture. Those guys were painting great pictures today. I thought Naj ran the ball extremely well. That was huge for us in our run game, and he just had a great day, man. And I thought just everybody it's a great team effort. Yeah, I thought we had a great day.
That right there encapsulated everything. Like I don't remember a time, and thank you, Mr. Willie Epting rather. Yes, I definitely would say Tomlin for Coach of the Year. But I can't remember even with the Chiefs head coach Andy Reid a recent time in the last couple of years where I saw that level of, I don't even know what I want to call it. Andy Reid I'm on the sidelines. I got my headphones on, headphones on. I'm just kind of looking. I see Mike Tomlin touching his players, having a word for his players on the sideline. There's just something different about what Tomlin has going on in Pittsburgh from a motivational perspective that I think, to your point, the Steelers are just rising up to. And then when you hear, I mean, Look, Rue Wilson is in his first year with the Steelers, and he didn't start the season. But when you listen to him, it's like he's been there for much longer. That is a leadership, that I think Mike Tomlin has created environment for Wilson to be comfortable in. Contrasted to where he was at with the Broncos. Let me underscore that.
I agree. And you know what? I feel there really is so much to dive into within this that I would love to talk about more. But I think it's time to dive on into the other team within this
Mhm.
game, the one that left the stadium on the losing side, the Bengals. Now, when you think about the Bengals, this is a team that, at least for a good amount of the season right now, they're 4-8, third within the AFC North. Yet, this is a team that, in most of their losses, 6 of their 8 losses to be exact, it was one possession games. These were losses, or really, I mean, technically, this is 7 of 8, if we're being honest, because of the fact that they lost by 6. I say 6 of 8 because of the fact that they were down double digits for a good amount of the second half before scoring that later game touchdown. So we'll still say 7 of 8. But the fact remains that most of their losses this season have come down to the little
Yeah.
things, have come down to a lack of winning plays, little things, little tidbits in which that really keeps them and prevents them from leaving the stadium victorious. What did you see from Cincinnati this Sunday that prevented them from getting their 5th win of the season and keeping their playoff hopes alive?
Check this
I
out.
wish I could explain it. It's something we work through. I do feel good about the preparation, but that hasn't shown up on game day as much as it needs to. And we'll keep working through it. We've got to tackle better. There's no question. We got to be on the same page with all the details. I think it's as simple as that. Find ways to create turnovers, get stops. As I said, all 3 phases, there's things that we can do better to help us win a game. It's not just on one unit. And so, again, we just got to find a way to improve. I wish I could explain it.
Okay, so for me, the answer to that question is Coach Kevin Stefanski of the Cleveland Browns and Coach Zach Taylor of the Cincinnati Bengals sound like the same person. As a fan, when I hear a coach say, listen, we're practicing hard, I like what I'm seeing in practice, but for some reason it's not translating onto the field, listen, you're ineffective. Okay. I don't know how Bengals Nation feels, but you know where I'm at with the Browns because of this very same thing. We have talked about across this season how distracted the Bengals players are, how they came into the season more siloed than I love to use this word integrated. I just don't know how, when you start a season fragmented, you can clean that up within a game or two, right? When players are more about themselves, their stats. Look, Chase is hands down one of the elite wide receivers in this league. But I never thought he started the season with his head in the right place and focused on how he could help his team win. T. Higgins didn't seem like he wanted to be in Cincinnati, right? They traded Mixon. My personal opinion, they shouldn't have. I think about these things. I think about how did the Bengals work during the offseason to position themselves to pick up where they were at this season and hit that next level. It's like they have a great car, but they're only running on 3 out of 4 cylinders. They're only driving on 3 out of 4 tires. And we can talk about how great Joe Burrow is. Listen, stats out the wazoo. But as a fan, I don't care about that. I submit to you, Joe Burrow probably doesn't care about that. To Willie's point, the Bengals defense has been weak all season. We talked about that Kansas City game, right? And it
Uh,
just it,
uh,
it just seems like they can't as a team finish. So you heard Coach Taylor. Those are my thoughts. What are you thinking?
well, off top, if we're being honest, there was a point within the second half when watching that game where I thought, where's Chase Brown? 8 carries, 61 yards in the first half, but ending the game with 12. Uh, don't get me wrong. It's nice to see Burrow keep his, positioning within the top rings and passing yards and passing touchdowns on the season. But
Yep.
to win the game, That at least what was my first thought, because of the fact that he was so productive in the first half. You just expect to see that, and if needed, make him a workhorse to really go on to, you know, give you a better chance to win the game, which they haven't done much of this season. And actually, if we're gonna talk about trends and stuff, and not that it matter much, but like he hasn't had double digit carries in their last 3 games. All that have been losses. The last 3 times, that even 4 times. Actually, furthermore, he's had a lot of carries within each of their 4 wins. Versus Carolina, 15 carries, versus the Giants, 10 carries. Versus the Browns, 15, versus the Raiders, and that game, 27 carries. At some point, you're wondering if they're just sticking to what they feel is best, or if they're really looking to create and look elsewhere. But then because something like insanity is going in and doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result, point blank. And you're wondering, is Zach Taylor insane for not trying to incorporate more of the run game, or if he feels the pass game? And this is different from having to use the pass game to stay within the game, or having to come back. Like, they were up at halftime.
Yeah, it makes you wonder, like, and you're inside these locker rooms,
Yeah,
okay?
or apologies. Like, they were down 6 at halftime, but in majority of the games, like, they've been up at halftime or still within
Yeah,
the
yeah.
game, and it just suddenly subs away from him, and then they got to play catch up, just the way they did within the fourth quarter, 14 to 38 points in that period. That at least was my first thoughts when regarding this team and what really led to the loss. But honestly, we're being honest, like, it's really been some of the same stuff. They start off so hot and then become so cold, especially within the defensive side. Because I
Mhm.
forget the last time that I've seen Pittsburgh score that number of touchdowns within consecutive series,
Mhm.
and
Mhm. Mhm.
given Russell Wilson and his play throughout the season and stuff, that's still no excuse. There's still no excuse to just allow him to just go out that fluid and that easy the way that he was. Besides the interception, the interceptions, they come and go, they have been. Awesome play by Taylor Britt. Outside of that, though, that was Russell's game, and however you wanted to play, whatever you wanted to make happen, he did.
Mhm. Mhm. It's I want to go back to what you said about Chase Brown. It's like, what is that other than what you and Chris have talked about across again this season? Are the OCs just outthinking themselves in the game?
Yeah.
Like that old Asian adage, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't know why we lose sight of that, right? And I know we're going to get to the Ravens game, but I kind of felt the same thing about the Ravens. I don't know why there's such a drastic change in offensive approach after these teams have established the run. And I don't know if I'm just like getting too old, and maybe the focus is on, I know it's a pass heavy league and that sells seats and all of that, but as a fan, I want that victory. I want to see my running game dominate or take a toll on that D line. And once that happens, I know my quarterback's going to have time to drop back and go air Wilson, right? I just don't understand when I see that happen. And to Willie's point here, Zach Taylor is absolutely on the hot seat.
It really, I think that is a valid point, because, and like, maybe just something within this decade that we've seen so far, right? Or as other people have called it, the Sean McVay effect, right?
Mm,
A number of coaches come
West
in.
Coast.
Yeah, exactly. To come in with these different tangibles and ideas within how an offensive scheme can work and look. And naturally, something of that sort can influence the rest of the coaches within the league. Offensive coordinator, head coach, sometimes those that appear to be bold, even if they're not supposed to be, no names included, if the shoe fits. But I think, for one, that definitely has an influence as well. There really is that kind of lack of just getting the ball in the end zone. And while we're going to talk about the Browns later, that the one thing I've always more so been critiqued, I've more so criticized when it comes to Kevin Stefanski's approach, I feel, just in my eyes, is that he doesn't want to just score the ball. He doesn't just want to get the ball in the end zone because that's what matters at the end of the day. He wants to put a nice, pretty ball on it, and that's how I feel about a number of coaches within this league. And that's why, and we already talked about them. And that's why the Steelers are amongst the best teams in the league because all that they've ever done and worried about was just getting the ball into the end zone. Look what has gotten them.
That's right. That's right. And it makes me wonder, Ivory,
However, it
like,
is rough, dirty, clean on anything. Not to cut you off, Judge. Just had to add
yep.
that. Thank you.
Yes, it makes me really wonder if there's something more off the field that it's influencing these types of decisions, right? You know, I remember I'm talking going back to the mid 80s. The Browns made the playoffs with an 8-8 record, and it was ugly, right? But they made the playoffs, right? Um, I worry, and I shouldn't say worry, I think about the effect that for the Bengals, right? Losing these close games, not being able to finish, not being able to execute on the field for the rest of the season, what type of impact that's going to have on that team.
I think I mean, sure, we've already seen the prerequisites of it
Mm.
regarding distractions and other off the field things, and now this is just the cherry on top. I think we're going to be seeing quite a bit of this. Like it's hard now, not to say that they're not going to try to make things work, of course, because you got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, college teammates, making a Super Bowl in their first year playing in the league together. Like nobody looks at this and say, "Let's break it up," But something does have to change in house, though. If you're not gonna break anything within the offensive, you know, part of it, at least within their top guys, their main players. Something has to be done within the staff. Then something else has to be done within the O line part of it. Something has to be to change because whatever's happening right now, where they feel is best to give them a best chance to win, it's not working. And that's why we got to talk about them in the way that we are right now, which I don't want to, because this is a team that's good. Like when,
The
like
offense is good, yeah. I think the offense is scoring enough points. I just think the Cincinnati Bengals defense is terrible.
so, what is it then with the or at least what is the main part? Because and I only add as an example when I think about the Browns defense, the main thing that comes to mind is their secondary. It has like a kryptonite of this has been to give up too many big plays. A
Mhm.
number of big plays that would turn the game upside down and be a disadvantage for them later on, as we'll get to in a bit, because we did definitely see that this past Monday night. Is that something similar that maybe you see within the Bengals defense? There's a bit more so on the defensive side.
I mean, for me, the Browns, they're old. I know a lot of those players are still in their 20s, but they're old. I mean, with respect, like we blow up Denzel Ward. How many concussions has he had, right?
Or
And I think it's with all due respect, right? We got weaknesses in our secondary. We only have one real earner on our D line. So when I think about Cincinnati, it's not that different. I think they really need to look at their D line. I think they need to look at their corners, their safeties. I think they need to gut it and rebuild it. Do you remember? I'm going to go back to that Kansas City game because I know we were both laughing about it.
they were.
That fourth down when was it Logan? I can't remember the
I think it
player
was.
anymore. Yeah, he turned and looked at the sideline, and the camera just caught him at the right time, and you could see him look over there and mouth, "What the
What
f?" And he
are
didn't
we
say "f." Are we doing?
are we doing?
That to me was a microcosm for the rest of this season, right? So I saw where head coach Taylor and I can't remember their defensive coordinator's name, but this past week or two, they came out and they owned it. They said, this is on us. Again, not certain this deep into the season that has any real effect for Bengals Nation, but it's unacceptable. You still have to be a professional, come to work and show up and just take care of your business. If you're executing in practice the way Zach Taylor said, then what is the disconnect when you get out on the gridiron and you are putting your city's uniform on and playing the game of football? That is leadership to me. That's coaching. That is not holding your players accountable, right? Team has done everything they need to do. They paid them. They paid them. You got to show up. You see Joe Burrow, like his arm is looks like it's going to fall off most times after the game, right? Chase upset. He's not getting the ball, right? They're scoring enough points. It's unacceptable that the Cincinnati Bengals defense isn't pulling their weight. And I don't know about you, but where I work, if you don't do your job, you don't have a job to work. And it has to feel like that. So again, I don't want to go down the rabbit hole with this, but I got a clip here from Joe Burrow on his thoughts about the rest of the season. Take a listen.
Playoffs, I mean, furthest thing from my mind. You know, you never know what can happen. So, like I said, I'm just going to keep putting one foot in front of the other, try to be the best player that I can be for the rest of this season, and week in and week out, day in and day out, trying to be the best that I can be. Yeah, I think we'll learn a lot about who we have in the locker room, the guys that we can count on going forward, the guys that we can't. And, I think the next 6 weeks, 5 weeks are going to say a lot about who we can count on and who we can't. Playoffs.
You got your franchise player saying he's not even thinking about the playoffs. With all of that talent, not only that he brings, but on that offense, you got him saying that after a game, week 13.
I can't even say anything more to that. You've had a terrific 3 minutes and counting. Well said, well done. I'm not even. You heard it here. You heard it here first. This will be a clip later. I can't wait to see this on the social media. I hope that goes viral for obvious reasons. Job well done, Sapphire. I'm not even going to add much more into it outside the fact that you are 100% correct in everything you've said the last few minutes, and the fact that your quarterback. At least the fact that your quarterback is telling the public is making it known that he's not thinking about the playoffs is concerning because that's
Those
not what you
season
think.
ticket holders, those poor season ticket holders.
And it can be stereotypical, but you would assume that the faces of the franchise in any sport, any team, any franchise are wanting to go out there and give their 110% and provide the fans and the franchise what they feel they deserve. You know, go give them a show, go give it your all, see what can happen. And to say that, at least publicly, is another indicator of the mentality and where this team is right now mentally. Job well done with them pointing this out. And this only adds to the distractions that I feel are not being heavily noted or spoken about, at least as much as the Fear the North podcast has pointed out. You
And
know,
yes, Willie, I am being nice. I am being nice. It's hard. Listen, it is hard to be a fan and love your team and see them seemingly play games like they're walking through practice at the facility. It's hard. So,
it is. But yeah, so with that being said, I think that we dove right in, into this game, this primetime game between both division opponents. And now it's time to dive into another game. This I really can't wait to see you really take the lead on because of the fact that you were present amongst both fan bases, within the area. The Baltimore Ravens hosted the Philadelphia Eagles, and they lost 24-19. It's kind of weird because Baltimore started off, I don't want to say hot, but they came out in a commanding way with a 9-0 lead to end the first. And they just seemed to fall flat afterwards. And not to take any, much of your talking points, Africa. I just would definitely want to hear you speak on this and your, feelings watching the game, where you were and stuff, and the fan bases. But there was a lack of starting or establishing the run from the very jump. That would happen later on, but not from the start.
I just don't understand what Mr. Monken is doing. I just like my eye is twitching right now. I mean, I do not understand. Um, I'll just say this: the venue that I was at, like people literally almost had to be separated. You had Ravens fans on one side, you had Eagles fans on one side, and props to the female Eagles fans, okay? Because they were loaded for bear. They were ready to go. They were trash talking the whole nine. And I remember saying to a Ravens fan, I said, it's going to be interesting to see If Monken has learned his lesson, maybe Monken and Harbaugh, they've seen enough to know they have a stud in King Henry. Put him out there and let him beat down that Eagles defensive line. Maybe this is the game. And truth be told, the young man looked at me and he said, "Ma'am," and I said, "Okay, here we go." He said, "Ma'am, you don't understand. The Ravens can beat any team in different ways." And I said, "Oh, is that right?" He said, "Yes, ma'am. So we don't need to lean on Derrick Henry." And I looked at him and I said, "Come see me halftime and let's have this conversation again." He was devastated. He was devastated. He saw it. Uh, I just don't know how, because the Eagles showed the value of implementing the run. Whether it was Barkley, look, they stuck with them. That didn't work. Boom. All of a sudden, they brought Jalen Hurts out. I just don't understand what Todd Monken and John Harbaugh are thinking about as it relates to Derrick Henry and not using him.
100%. I have to agree with you on that because this team should be so much better. 9 carries in the first half. Finishing the game with 10 more in the second half. I really thought this would be a game in which he would be really used as a workhorse, just at least within the matchup sense, because there's
Yeah.
already an Eagles team without Brandon Graham and dealing with under injuries. Don't you want to take advantage of that?
Like, no, no, the Eagles D is no joke. Excuse me. They are a solid defense. And as you saw, they make great open field tackles. I mean, for Dijon, I think it's Dijon, he just blew me away. That open field tackle on Derrick Henry.
I didn't even
Now,
want to mention that. Oh man,
and I don't look, it looked like he picked Henry up. I don't know, but that open field tackle just really, again, I like to use that word microcosm, was a microcosm for how the Philadelphia Eagles defense showed up. They kept contained on Lamar and they didn't. Did you hear Zay Flowers' name mentioned very often? Likely, Andrews. I mean, the Baltimore Ravens started that game out on fire and they picked up a lot of yardage, but they didn't put points on the board, right? Um, quick thing from the kicker of the Baltimore Ravens, Mr. Justin Tucker.
As simply as I can put it, I miss the kicks, and I'll leave it at that. I just left the points out there. I feel like I cost us this one, but it doesn't really do anybody any good to dwell on it. The only thing that we can do, that I can do, is just continue to work, move forward, take one kick at a time. As simply as I can put it, I miss the
So
kicks.
we talk about we talk about balance. We talk about balance. Justin Tucker, in my mind, is going to go down as one of the best kickers in NFL history. But what he has been more consistently not doing this year, I just that was 7 points. I think if my math is correct, 2 field goals and 1 extra point. 7 points on your home field that he missed. And I didn't think they were very long field goal attempts. But here's an example of how whatever is happening in that facility is not translating onto the field. I just don't know how he missed 3 kicks like that.
I'm kind of lost at word. The kicker position is such an interesting position. One week you are loved, you are revered, you are, inspiring parents to name their kids after you. And the next week you are the bottom of their shoe. You are you all but God's name. And for Tucker, he started off, a little. He started off all right. All right, within the first couple weeks of the season, he missed two. He only missed 2 of his 7 field goal attempts. All right, that happens. Now, even later on in the season, there was that streak between, I want to say, weeks 5 and 7 where he made 7 consecutive. But in recent weeks, you don't know what to expect. He missed 2 of his 3 versus Pittsburgh. He missed 2 of his 4 versus Philly. And I don't like to play quick massive time or at least a what if game, but he makes both of those. That's 6 more points. They lost by 5.
It's hard. It's hard, isn't it? Because the
It's
last
hard.
thing you want to be thinking about is that.
I don't
The
even
one job,
Mr. Dependable is what he was.
allegedly.
That's the best kicker alive is what he was.
hmm
This season, he is not given much reason to keep either Montage going forward. So, yeah. Now, aside from Tucker, though, when it came down to Lamar Jackson, there were a number of times when watching that game where I felt some of those passes were flat. Some of those weren't thrown as confidently as we've seen them throw up there before. Am I crazy within that assessment?
No, you're right on. You are right on.
Okay.
Check this out. Oh, hold on.
But I was just trying to let guys develop routes. We had developing routes. I'm just trying to let things happen and trying to give my guys opportunities.
One second, having some technical difficulties here. Hold tight.
Now, while you're finding that, can you relay what he had said his mother had texted him after the game?
Yeah, she was upset with him. She thought that there were clear opportunities for him to take a lane and run it, use his feet, help his team. And
we gonna get after it, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. We gonna get after it. I can't wait to this block get on. We got the Giants coming up. I'm ready to go. I'm just ready to go, man. I'm just mad because I feel like we should win these games and we not getting them done. I'm always gonna put myself at the front line, no matter if I play good or not. I played all right, but yeah, I'm just ticked off because we left things out there on that field. Me, everyone. It's a team sport, and I know I and team. My mama just when we first got out there, I believe we was hitting on all cylinders. The drive, fumble snap, mishap. That kind of I feel like we start messing up right then and there. We got to just stay on task and just play our ball. Just play how we play. That was a pretty good team. Don't get me wrong. But I felt like we left stuff out there. We should have put more points on the board. Shouldn't even put Tuck in those type of situations. But
so he's owning not only his play but the team play. There were clear opportunities in that first half for the Ravens to put up. I counted at least 2 more touchdowns.
I agree.
They didn't execute. And so he talks about his mother cursed at him, right? She told him he should have run the ball more. His if you didn't hear it, his response was he was trying to read through his progressions because he wanted to get his team members involved. If Chris were here, I would ask Chris, does he really believe that? Or is it more that that's something that's been put in Lamar Jackson's mind? Because what I think I know of Lamar Jackson as an NFL quarterback, he intuitively does that. It's counter to what type of player he has been in his career, right? In the NFL. And it makes me feel like we talked about, is this nerves? Is he feeling that pressure? When you think about not just the MVP, but to get to the Super Bowl and in a certain way, is someone putting the bug in his ear? You know what? Yeah, you can run, you can do this and that and the other, but we really need to keep you in the pocket, right? More. That is what stood out to me about what he said, that he's even thinking that.
Boom. You said it. I can't even. I mean, as usual, you bring on a different perspective that I don't think many people think about. I 100% agree with that, and I'll piggyback that with saying, of course, like those games like these, the way that they played, it's hard not to think back to the possible mindset after last season, after the way in which they ended off that AFC Championship loss to Kansas City, who went on to win another Super Bowl. I think they really believed, as they should, but they really bought it when the outside was saying that this was their year.
Yeah.
Last year was their year, and that was their time. I mean, when do you hear about a team, at least within the last few years, and their dominant run, a team, Kansas City having to go on the road for the AFC Championship game, and the way that they were underwhelming and played in that game, I think it stayed with them, and actually it's added more pressure, and they're allowing that pressure to get to them because we've seen them play below expectations in multiple games this season, and we're just hitting the double-digit mark within games played right now. This is no different in the way they played versus the Browns, and I mentioned that because that was another one of those surprising losses. It's hard not to think about that, and you want, even with the addition of Derrick Henry, King Henry as they call them, you really see the narrative of Lamar not being a quarterback that's able to win in big games versus legit opponents, I think getting to him a little bit more than he is letting off.
I totally agree with that. And then just the inconsistency in terms of using the weapons that he has. Like Mark Andrews, listen, he could be old as father time. He's still very effective, right? Um, Likely, even though he looked like he was, hobbled a little bit. You got Zay Flowers. You still have not only the running game in Henry, but also Lamar himself. They have enough weapons on offense used the right way, right, to be winning these games. Check this out, Todd Monken.
Overall, offensively, we forget the offense. We did not play as well as we're capable of. Irrespective of that, we can certainly coach better and play better. That's what we have to do. In the games that we've lost the last couple of weeks, a few weeks ago, it was turnovers and penalties. This week, it was touchdowns in the red zone. The penalties, we didn't have this week. We really hadn't been turning it over, and we've been really good in the red zone. We just didn't take advantage of the opportunities we had. That's also offensively scoring touchdowns. So those are the ways you win.
These coaches come after these games and they're like, they sound like that, but they never answer the question, what is happening with your team where they are not executing on the field? What do you specifically see as the reasons why that didn't work? Like that's the part that I listen for, right? Unless there's some strategy where they don't want to reveal something, right? Again, I'm looking at these games as a fan. You cannot have that much talent on your team and not execute and finish those games. And to your point, when that game first started and there were some passes that, Lamar just missed that he hasn't been missing. Like, what is going on? And for me, it's the drama of it as well. When I watch these post-game pressers, and I see him do this while he's talking, right? Which he's always been a fidgety kind of quarterback. But I'm thinking, what is going on in his head, right? We talked earlier this season about how the game appeared to have slowed down for Lamar Jackson. All of that went away. He's a completely different player in the last handful of weeks than probably around week 3, week 4, if my memory is serving me correctly. Like there's something going on. And I think you and Chris are spot on when you talk about the pressure potentially getting to him.
Thank you. And, credit as well within you two in the way that you break down each perspective. We learn something new each week with you. This really is a team with great potential, but there's also a team that has nearly gotten to that promised land. And, it's you just wonder how long that window will stay open. I think is really what also adds to that pressure right now as well. So
That is a great point. That is a great point because every player, every team has a window. Perfect transition into your next.
Yes, thank you. We talk in NFL, you have teams that are worried about their windows of winning, along with, how quick a turnaround can be if they so happen to have a down year. And no other team describes that best than the Cleveland Browns.
I have something for you, Irie. I really do. This is just for you, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
All right.
Yeah, it's tough for any team to win when you have 2 defensive touchdowns that the quarterback gave them. Defense played good. Offense played well. I didn't do a great job. I got to play better. That's the biggest thing. It was my fault. Like there's evidence. 2 touchdowns. 2 touchdowns by the defense. Pick sixes. I am a better player, but In times like this, it's an opportunity to continue to glorify the Lord even through the toughest circumstances. I know I'm better than this. I know I'm just praying for the Lord to deliver me from pick sixes. Like that's not me. Yeah.
So at least for Browns Nation, it feels like there's one player that is acknowledging the pain that we are all experiencing, right? And I'm going to say this uh, for some of the Cleveland sports media
Oh man.
that I perceive are attacking that young man, characterizing him as unstable because he's very vocal about his belief system. Shame on you. Just as an aside, and I'm going to go here for a minute, when you have celebrities or athletes, people that have a global platform to communicate to the regular folk like me in the world, he gave a word for people that are down on themselves, feeling hopeless, and how you can still, through the grace of the good Lord and his strength, move forward in your life. And so I thought he covered checked two of my biggest boxes in terms of communicating. Yes, I'm going to own that I let my team down, but there can still be victory in loss, right? You can still have strength in life when you go through dark times. And I didn't take it as some of the Cleveland sports media did, as a slight against him or a joke. I think Jameis Winston was speaking his truth to power. And to that end, as a Browns fan, it was refreshing for me.
Well said. I apologize that members that you listen to on online or on the radio each week give you something new to critique. Maybe one day they will call for reckoning and understand that they are not pleasing Sapphire, and hopefully they will change their tune going forward because it's something new each week. Insanity if anything. Doing the
Yeah.
same thing over and over again and hoping that it will change the results. It's kind of been
Well,
this season.
to your point, though, back to the regularly scheduled program. If I'm not mistaken, Winston threw for almost 60 times, 60 pass attempts. And we talk about Baltimore not using all their weapons. I just feel like I don't know what the Browns are doing, but I almost felt like Jameis was auditioning for his next team.
This you know what, this was not control, but like this is kind of that stage right now. I feel like at this point you're 3-9. Of course they were looking to move to 4-8, but now you're 3-9. At this point you got guys that are playing for their jobs. They're showing, hey, I'm capable of being this. Hey, I'm capable of having this kind of role on this team. Hey, I'm Jerry Judy. I'm capable of being your team's top receiver. I'm capable of being WR1. Hey, I'm Myles Garrett. I still got it in me. I'm at my Reggie White point in my career. I still got it in me to play, even if that means on a playoff contender, because it's not what this team has been right now. But just so you know, I still can do this. Hey, I'm Jameis Winston. I came in as the backup. You see the way how I'm doing now as a starter. If you need me, I got you. That is the stage right now at this point in the season for a lot of these guys right now. Sadly, whether it be for the Browns or for the next team they play with in the future, if that were to happen, I 100% agree. And it sucks.
It does suck, and as we've been talking about for the last handful of weeks, the Browns are just a spoiler, which brings us into our picks for week
Well,
14.
Well, real quick before diving into the picks, I understand that you are definitely not somebody who likes to speak about the Browns too much, and I understand on that.
Mhm.
It's okay.
Oh,
I get you.
you need more? Well, here, let me give you let me
Oh
give you
no.
Coach Stefanski on the Browns play.
Ran about 23 times only last night. Was that just the running game just wasn't there, or was it just that Jameis was throwing the ball so well?
I think a combination of those two things, Jeff. We want to run the ball better. We want to be more efficient in our run game. We also were making a lot of yards in the pass game. 3 sacks for the amount of times we dropped back. So the protection was outstanding. We're making yards, but we absolutely want to be more efficient in the run game.
You guys.
Is that fact?
Like, can you believe he said that? You think about if you saw all of the game, right? And people are raving about the 400 plus yards Jameis Winston threw. And I when we talked, I said, did they add the 170 yards, that pass yards he threw on those 2 pick sixes? Because that would put him somewhere around 650, 660. Like, come on, man. This is how we're defining success. Come on.
We are talking about a franchise that has made the playoffs 3 times in the 21st century. So as far as the running,
that's just not fair. That's just
the I'm sorry, it's just like I think it's blurred. Like the standard and tier of what people may define success relating to the franchise or outside, but support the franchise is becoming a little blurred right now. And honestly, one of those things was propping up a quarterback who nearly had 500 yards for his offense. That was his offense, not the other team, not the opposing player. It is funny though as well. Like those plays came at like they were at such pivotal points of the game in which really they were building upon something. That first pick six.
Yeah,
they were sitting 29 yards away from the end zone, and it just tell me if I'm lying. But when you watch the replay, Nick Monigil sat back, just like an owl, watching like a spy in their cover 4 scheme before coming in and coming up on that target that was going for Jordan Akins.
No, you're not lying, because for me, and this could be me, when I look at Jameis Winston, when he's throwing picks, it looks like he's telegraphing where he's going to throw the ball. That's number one.
100%.
And on that particular play, his head was locked in, like everybody.
His body turning. You see his body, yeah.
Yes.
You see
And then
his body.
he did the Mexican jumping bean pitter patter with his feet. Like he was waiting on Akins to do something that I think was beyond Akins' capability, vis-a-vis keep the motion in your route. So Akins was just like sitting there, like, what do you want me to do, Jameis? I'm here. Like he stopped the motion in his route. Jameis felt he had no other option but to throw that pass because he knew he was about to get sacked. So to your point, yeah. Dude just sat right there, spied on me. It was like, man, this is like taking candy out of kids' hands. That's just what I saw.
Yeah, and it's hard not to as regarding the second pick, we know it was Jameis that threw the play, but it's hard for me not to fully tie in the offensive play calling as well. Because I think about the fact that there has been a trend at times in which if something is working, if something is working, the Browns will tend to go do that same play again the next time around or later on in that game or the next week. Example, the jet sweep, right? Last year it worked a couple of times with Elijah Moore early on in the season versus week 1 versus Cincinnati. They kept on doing it so much. Opposing defenses were awaiting it, and then you go to and then versus Baltimore week 4 of last season, they had that -20 jet sweep. In this game, Elijah Moore once again, he made that terrific play that on 3rd and 12 made the catch with both feet in bounds for that 14-yard reception to keep the series alive ahead of the 2-minute warning. And what happens the very next play? An out route to Elijah Moore, who just was targeted the play prior. You know what that reminded me of? Only naturally just because of the fact that it was pretty much the same route just going the other way. It reminded me of the playoff loss when Joe Flacco threw the ball towards Harrison Bryant on that tight end out route.
Oh, yes.
A play that was so telegraphed and you knew it was going to happen before the play even started, just off the formation. Everybody was lined up and alone, which was, once again, like you said earlier, like taking candy from a baby. That's what I thought about in that play. And also, there was just that sense of like the awareness factor with Elijah Moore. Like we saw him regaining his balance, but the fact he didn't run to touch it and down him. You mean before he ran all the way down to the other end zone because they were still down 2. That could have maybe changed things for the better had he hustled and touched them. Things happen, but yeah. And the last thing I mentioned as well too, and I think I alluded to it earlier, was the number of big plays allowed by this Browns secondary, not just in that game, but just on the season alone. Like when they allowed Marvin Mims Jr. to make that catch early on, right? Or not earlier, but later on, the 93-yarder, to the crib. Even though Denzel Ward almost prevented that, Mims still made a catch. Did you know that was that play put Cleveland tied for 4th rank with Dallas regarding the most 40-yard completions allowed this season? That was the 9th time that they've allowed a pass that was 40 or more yards this season. They're tied for 4th now with Dallas at 9.
Wow.
Is another example and implication that regardless of how they are playing, there's been a number of times in which a deep play due to miscommunication don't even maybe bring up much of what happened versus the Chargers. And now they pretty much bailed them out with miscommunication in the backfield, regardless of what scheme they're in, cover 2, cover 4, whatever it was. It was cover score on me. You mean?
Like Irie, you see this clearly. Browns Nation sees this clear. What does that say that your leadership, your team leadership, lacks the creativity to adjust for these things? What am I missing?
Right now, and there's so many ways to go about it, but I think the simplest I'll try to say right now that I think would paint the picture enough within a broad sense is that last season was so good that is what was expected of this season. And as usual, when things aren't going their way, at least for this team, because of the historic loss, losing, they're just kind of waiting for things to just go downhill afterwards, and that kind of I think becomes the feeling and mood going into each game, regardless of how much they prep, regardless of how much film they watch, regardless of how ready they feel they are, and how much difference they try to make. There's still those moments and times in which they're thinking, "All right, this is where, we lose again. This is the start of the end for us today on this Sunday or Monday night in this case."
Yeah.
That is what I would have to say right now. Of course, you can dive into was the theory was there really a culture change, or was it the fact that or was it the thought of the offense really clinging on to the defense who had found their identity, and the offense didn't have much of an identity to be to alone, or could it be Deshaun Watson and everything that happened and brought about?
Okay.
And
All
I
right.
only
You're
I
trying to
only
get me
mentioned that
ginned up,
I
right?
only
You're trying
I
to get me
only
ginned up tonight?
I only
I don't need to get on a plane and fly back up to Cleveland. I can just spread my wings and go there and be there in 5 minutes. Please do not bring back up Deshaun Watson. The man had no offensive line. There's still no run game. Oh my Jesus. Oh my Jesus. Like, leave that man alone. They rushed him back from major shoulder surgery, like they did Nick Chubb, by the way. Cleveland sports media is hating on Nick Chubb. They got him all sized up to be the next year's Kareem Hunt. He's lost all of his ability to cut, and, he's not squatting as much. Insanity. This team needs a techno-structural redesign. Please don't get me ginned up any more than I am, Irie.
Noted. Thank you for putting it with me. You know what? I think that is a terrific segue into our show-ending predictions.
Before we go there, I'm going to say this. You all can read Irie Harris's most recent article on Cleveland.com, winners and losers from the Browns 41-32 loss to the Broncos. And I'm excited for you as well, Irie, because I know you're going to be traveling with the Browns. I believe at their game this week at Acrisure Stadium versus the Steelers, correct?
Correct, and thank you. I love it very much. Appreciate the shout out. Yes, everybody can catch me if you just type in my name, as it says right there within the red. My page will come up with Cleveland.com, and you can see the recent winners and losers. Stay tuned. Again, more content coming soon. Yes, you are correct, Sapphire. I will be there in person when Cleveland visits Pittsburgh. That's an atmosphere that I look forward to every single season, and I look forward to it ahead of Sunday because they just played each other a couple weeks back. Thursday night. So I look forward to seeing what that Sunday can bring upon for us. But yes, that is the first game that we can dive into and really speak on predictions wise what we think can happen.
Right.
Last time these two teams played was that snow game Thursday night, an instant classic. There's a lot going on within. George Pickens and Greg Newsome going at it during the game and afterwards. Myles Garrett claiming that he's still the best defensive player in the league in the game at that, and that he goes through other things that other defensive players are not going through, and he's saying
Yeah.
this after his team just defeated the other team, which featured T.J. Watts, somebody else who we looking to be a defensive player of the year. Just thoughts within what can happen, what we can see. Like the pot is already stirred, so it's gonna explode whenever it feels like it.
I'm trying to remember. I'm gonna evoke my inner Chris Murray. There was a movie back in the early, I think, 1980s. It was called An Officer and a Gentleman, and Lou Gossett Jr. played I think he was a first sergeant, and Richard Gere was coming up, going through officers training like school or something. And I think I'm remembering the line, I will smoke you like a cheap cigar. I think that, especially after the Steelers had their letdown in that Thursday night game at Cleveland, that this is going to be a game that Pittsburgh they just come out. I think all of this chatter back and forth from the Browns' perspective is their way of saying, well, we can't beat them on the field. Maybe we can get into their head and distract them, right? It's even later in the season, albeit a week and a half ago that the Steelers played at the Browns. I expect Russell Wilson, Najee, I think Highsmith may be coming back for this game. You can speak to that. They will have Hayward, Herbig, Highsmith, TJ Watt. Like, I'm trying not to think about the SmackDown. I'm just trying to be real. So for me, the Browns are going to lose the game. And I really hope that that will be the last game that Kevin Stefanski will coach for the Cleveland Browns. Yes, I said that.
Death, taxes, and Sapphire calling for Stefanski to be let go. Wow.
Again, put again, comma again after Sapphire calling for Stefanski to be gone. Comma again, exclamation mark, Irie. I am just done. I wish that we know these players have already booked their tickets to Tahiti, Thailand, Philippines, wherever they go during the off season, right? They got the villas rented already. Like, it's over. They are not relevant. Come on. You're getting me ginned up again. First Deshaun, and now we're talking about the Browns team. Okay, all right. Let me. Woosah.
Right.
Okay.
Woosah, Steelers win as well, in my opinion. All right, time to move on. The Ravens. Guess what? They're off.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what makes it even worse with them losing to the Eagles, because then you go into the bye week with this loss.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we saw Lamar so hyped up and just so angsty to play the Giants, wishing that could come 11 days early. So we'll leave it be and see what happens with them. But that leaves us with the Bengals, who will be playing Monday night at Dallas. Another team that has also been underwhelming this season with their record of 5-7. Both of them losing records. Both teams expected to be better or at least good enough this season. I don't even know where to start with this game.
I mean,
it's gonna hurt my head watching this game. I swear.
Yeah. It's really curious about the Cowboys. I grew up with them when, Landry was the head coach, Tex Schramm era. There wasn't like, I just don't get Jerry Jones. Other than that, he's wealthy beyond my wildest imagination, and
Nobody does.
still being a pimp daddy at 80 years old. But I wonder if there's something about Dallas in this game, home game against the Bengals, but I'm actually going to take the Bengals for this game.
You know what's crazy? I'm also taking the Bengals as well. Wow, would you look at that?
How about that?
AFC North supremacy. I think the reason why I'm taking them is because this is a team that, I mean, is always come down to the little things, come down to finishing strong. And they're playing another team that has also not been as good consistently in that. So I see a way in which they're able to come out on top and take advantage of that somehow, some way. So we will keep it at that. All right, folks. Well, you know what? That'll do us out. Sapphire, you went outro out right quick.
Yeah, and before I do, I just want to ask everyone to be in prayer with us for our wonderful brother Chris Murray and his family medical situation that he's dealing with. You know, we put so much investment of our time and our emotions into a game, and then there's real life happening. And I just feel like we could all do better taking care of each other, regardless of our differences. So, Chris, we love you. We're here for you. And we're just, our hearts go out to you and your family. So, on that note, I love you as well.
Love you too, Sapphire. Thank
Please
you
be
all.
careful. Please be careful in your travels to Pittsburgh. Okay.
Likewise.
All
Safe,
right.
safe travels within your back. Thank you all very much for tuning in to another edition of Fair Enough Podcast. We are on usually every Tuesday. We had to push out to Wednesday, but thank you all still for making the time to join us tonight. And we will look to be there Tuesday every week, per usual, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time. You can follow us on all socials, Blue Sky, X, wherever you feel, at Fear the North 4. The number 4, you don't spell it out, F-O-U-R, but nope, the number 4 exactly, because that's how many teams there are within this division. It's also the best in the NFL. So we'll keep it at that. Thank you all again. Please enjoy your night. I'm Myra Harris. That's Sapphire, and we're out. Deuces.